You are not the same person who started reading this sentence. That's not a metaphor. By the time you reach the end of a thought, any thought, the neural architecture that began it has already dissolved. The you that forms a question and the you that hears the answer are not the same configuration of cells, electricity, and memory. You have never had a continuous experience of being yourself. You have only ever had the impression of one. We spend our entire lives defending something, a reputation, a belief, a sense of who we are. We say things like, "That's just not me," or "I've always been this way." We build identities like houses, expecting them to stand. But what if there's no house? What if the self isn't a structure at all, but a flame? Something that has to be continuously reignited. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Endel Tulving began mapping what he called episodic memory, the kind of memory that lets you travel mentally through your own life. Not just facts, but experience, the feeling of being there. What he found changed how neuroscientists think about personal identity. Your brain doesn't store your life like a video file. It stores fragments, emotional anchors, sensory cues. And when you remember something, the window of now that your brain actually holds together in one coherent piece is narrow, startlingly narrow, somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds. After that, the brain doesn't continue the same experience. It starts a new one and links it backward, stitching the seams so smoothly, you never feel the cut. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio called this the autobiographical self, a story the brain tells continuously about a character called you to create the sensation of a continuous life. You are the story, not the storyteller. Here's where it gets strange. Damasio found that patients with certain types of brain damage lost the ability to maintain this autobiographical narrative. They could still speak, still recognize faces, still feel pain and hunger and cold, but they could no longer experience themselves as a person moving through time. They existed in flashes, each moment complete in itself, with no thread connecting it to what came before. They weren't distressed by this. That's the part no one talks about. Now go deeper. Philosopher Derek Parfit spent decades asking one question. What makes you the same person you were 10 years ago? Not your body. Most of your cells have been replaced. Not your memories. They've been edited, revised, some invented entirely. Not your beliefs. Most people's core values shift substantially by their mid-30s. Not even your personality. Longitudinal studies show it changes more than we expect across a lifetime. So, what's left? Parfit's answer was radical. He said nothing is left. There is no deep fact about personal identity. The self is a useful fiction, a convention the brain adopts so it can plan, relate, and survive. He didn't say this as a tragedy. He said it as a relief. Here's the pattern interrupt. Stop for a moment. You've been reading this as if it's about someone else, as if it's information you're collecting from a safe distance. But everything described so far is happening to you, right now, in real time, as you sit here. The you that began this video has already been reconstructed several times over. The memory you're forming of this moment will be different by tomorrow. The version of you that feels certain about who you are, that version has never actually checked. Back to the science. Neurologist Oliver Sacks documented patients with profound amnesia who could not form new memories lasting longer than a few minutes. One patient, Jimmie G, lived perpetually in 1945. Every morning, he woke up a young man. Every morning, the world had to be relearned. Sacks asked a nun who worked with Jimmie whether he had a soul. She looked at Sacks carefully and said, "Watch him during chapel. During music, during prayer. Jimmie was fully present, continuous, himself."
The self, it seemed, could be held together by something other than memory. But no one has agreed on what that something is.
That's not nostalgia. That's accurate perception. That person made decisions you wouldn't make, loved things you've outgrown, was terrified of things that no longer touch you. In every way that actually matters, psychologically, neurologically, emotionally, they were a different person, wearing your name. And the person reading this right now, 10 years from now, you'll look back at them the same way. The self you are defending today, the opinions, the identity, the certainty about who you are and what you stand for, is a draft. It has always been a draft. The brain just doesn't tell you that, because a story without a stable protagonist is a story no one can live inside. So ask yourself, not rhetorically, but honestly, how much of your life are you living for a version of yourself that no longer exists? How many choices are you making to protect an image, a story, a character who is quietly already changed into someone else? There's a concept in Buddhism called anatta, non-self. The idea that the self is not a fixed entity, but a process, a river, not a rock. Ancient monks arrived at this conclusion through meditation, without brain scanners or memory research or longitudinal studies. Modern neuroscience, 2,500 years later, is publishing papers that say roughly the same thing. Which raises something worth sitting with. If the self is a performance, if it's a story the brain generates to hold experience together, then who is performing it? Who is reading this? Who will carry this question into sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow and feel with complete conviction that they are the same person who fell asleep?